They say IT guys are invisible. We fix your computer, update your software, and disappear back into our cubicles like digital ghosts. Nobody notices us until something breaks. I'm Matt Russo, and I've been fixing other people's problems for 15 years. Too bad I couldn't debug my own marriage. The first red flag should have been when Tracy started password protecting her phone. My wife of 8 years, who used to leave her device lying around like yesterday's newspaper, suddenly clutched it like state secrets. But I'm an optimist. Was an optimist. Past tense seems more accurate these days. Matt, can you look at my laptop? She asked last Tuesday, sliding the silver MacBook across our kitchen counter. It's running slow again. I should have said no. Should have told her to take it to the Apple Store like normal people. Instead, I opened it up and started my usual diagnostic routine. Tracy disappeared upstairs, probably to shower off another late night at the office. The laptop wasn't slow, it was perfectly fine. But buried in the browser history, behind cleared cookies and deleted downloads, I found something that made my stomach drop to my shoes. Photo uploads to a cloud service I didn't recognize. Recent ones. My hands shook as I recovered the deleted files. There she was, my wife of 8 years, in photos that definitely weren't meant for her husband. The timestamp showed they were taken in our bedroom. Our bed. While I was at work, fixing other people's computers. The worst part wasn't the photos. It was the text message thread I found in her backed-up data. Tracy and her friend Kelsey gossiping about boring Matt and how Eric really knows how to treat a woman. They discussed meeting times, cover stories, and laughed about how easy I was to fool. He actually believes I'm working late, Tracy had written. Poor guy has no idea what a real man looks like. Kelsey's response made my chest tighten. You deserve so much better than that computer nerd. Eric's gym is way more exciting than Matt's little repair shop. I sat in that kitchen for an hour, staring at the evidence of my wife's betrayal. Eric Bell. I knew him from the local gym where I occasionally pretended to exercise. Tall, muscular, drove a bright red Mustang that he parked across 2 spaces. The kind of guy who wore tank tops in winter and called everyone bro. Tracy came downstairs in her robe, hair wet from the shower. How's the laptop looking? Perfect, I said, closing it. Just needed a quick cleanup. She kissed my forehead like I was her helpful little brother. You're so good at this computer stuff. I don't know what I'd do without you. I smiled and nodded, but inside I was already planning. See, there's one thing Tracy forgot about computer nerds. We're really, really good at gathering information. The next morning, I called in sick to work. First time in 3 years, but I had more important business than fixing Mrs. Henderson's virus-infected desktop. I needed to understand exactly what I was dealing with. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Tracy's friends were easy to research. Social media made everyone an open book if you knew where to look. Kelsey Martinez ran a beauty blog with 12 followers and delusions of influencer grandeur. She posted gym selfies constantly, always tagged at Bell's Fitness. Alana Swift worked in marketing and shared every meal, every thought, every bathroom break with her online audience. Stephanie Park was the quiet one, but her photos showed her at every girls' night, every wine tasting, every gossip session. These women had been in my house. They'd eaten my food, complimented my cooking, and smiled to my face while knowing exactly what Tracy was doing behind my back. The group chat I'd recovered from Tracy's laptop showed months of planning, lying, and laughing at my expense. Eric Bell's social media was exactly what you'd expect. Shirtless gym photos, protein shake advertisements, and videos of him lifting weights while staring intensely at the camera. His business page showed he'd been struggling financially. Several negative reviews mentioned unprofessional conduct and inappropriate behavior with female clients. I spent the morning creating fake social media profiles. Nothing elaborate, just believable accounts that could follow people without raising suspicion. By lunch, I had access to everyone's posts, stories, and enough personal information to write unauthorized biographies. The real breakthrough came when I checked Tracy's cloud backup more thoroughly. She'd been sloppy about security, probably assuming her computer-illiterate husband would never dig this deep. I found videos. Not just photos anymore, but actual recordings of her and Eric in our bedroom, laughing about how clueless I was. He fixed my laptop yesterday, Tracy's voice said from my computer speakers. Sat right there in the kitchen while I texted you. He has no idea. Eric's laugh made my jaw clench. Dude's probably too busy with his video games to notice a real woman anyway. They were wrong about the video games. I preferred reading, actually. But they were right about one thing. I hadn't noticed. Not until now. I copied everything to an encrypted drive and started planning phase 1 of what I was already calling the Tracy Project. If my wife wanted to play games, I'd show her what a computer nerd could really accomplish. Tracy's brother Danny had always been a problem. Even at family dinners, he treated me like hired help instead of his sister's husband. Last month's incident still burned in my memory. He'd thrown a banana at me during dessert, laughing about teaching the monkey to dance. While the whole family watched, Tracy had giggled and called it harmless fun. I'd smiled then, picked up the banana, and made a joke about potassium being good for brain function. Everyone laughed, including me. But I remembered everything. Danny worked construction and posted constantly about his projects, his trucks, and his opinions on everything from politics to pizza toppings. He also had a habit of sharing embarrassing family stories, including several about Tracy's teenage years that she'd probably prefer stayed buried. I created a fake account and started following Danny's friends, particularly his coworkers and drinking buddies. These guys loved drama, and they shared everything. Within 2 days, I had enough information about Danny's personal life to write a country song. The plan was simple. I'd use Danny's own social media habits against him, create some chaos in his life, and let Tracy deal with the fallout. She'd be too distracted managing her family's drama to notice what I was really preparing. I started with small things. Anonymous tips to his boss about Danny's habit of posting photos from job sites, including some that showed safety violations. A few carefully placed comments on his social media posts that highlighted his more questionable opinions to his female coworkers. Nothing traceable, nothing illegal, just strategic information sharing. That within a week, Danny was complaining to Tracy about workplace drama and people trying to cause trouble. She spent hours on the phone with him, playing family therapist while Eric waited in our bedroom. Phase 1 was working perfectly. While Tracy focused on her brother's problems, I expanded my surveillance network. I'd installed monitoring software on our shared computer, set up alerts for her social media activity, and even placed a small recording device in our bedroom. Everything I was doing was technically legal since it was my house and my computer, but I knew Tracy would never expect this level of technical sophistication from her boring husband. The recordings were particularly revealing. Tracy and Eric didn't just meet for physical encounters. They planned their future together, discussed my weaknesses, and laughed about how they'd handle the divorce. According to their pillow talk, Tracy intended to take half of everything, including the small IT business I'd built from nothing. "He's so predictable," Tracy said in one recording. "Matt will probably just accept whatever I tell him. He's never stood up for himself in his life." Eric agreed. Guys like that don't fight back. They just take it and move on. They were about to learn how wrong they could be. Tracy's birthday was coming up, and she'd been dropping hints about wanting a special celebration with her friends. I decided to give her exactly what she wanted, just not in the way she expected. I booked the rooftop bar at the Marriott downtown, sent invitations to all her friends, her family, and even Eric. The invitation said it was a surprise party, which was technically true. Tracy would definitely be surprised. The venue had a modern AV system that I'd worked on 6 months earlier when they upgraded their conference facilities. I still had the administrative passwords because their IT department was basically one overworked guy who appreciated my help. Getting access to their projection system would be simple. I spent 2 weeks preparing the presentation, screenshots of the group chat where Tracy's friends mocked me, photos of Eric's gym with timestamps showing when Tracy visited during her work meetings, bank records showing suspicious charges at hotels and restaurants, everything organized into a clean, professional slideshow that would have made my old marketing professor proud. The night of the party, I arrived early to test the equipment. Tracy thought I was setting up decorations, which I was, in a way. She looked beautiful in the red dress she'd bought specifically for Eric, though she didn't know I'd seen his text requesting that color. "This is so sweet of you, Matt," she said, kissing my cheek. "I can't believe you organized all this." Her friends arrived in a cluster of perfume and fake enthusiasm. Kelsey immediately started taking selfies, Alana complained about the parking, and Stephanie quietly observed everything like she was gathering material for later gossip sessions. Eric showed up fashionably late, wearing a tight black shirt that showed off his gym results. He shook my hand with exaggerated firmness and called me buddy in that condescending tone that made my teeth ache. "Great party, buddy," he said. "Tracy's lucky to have such a thoughtful husband." The irony was so thick you could serve it with dinner. I waited until everyone had drinks and the conversation reached that comfortable buzz of social lubrication. Then I excused myself to check on the music and activated my presentation. The first slide appeared on every screen in the bar. Tracy's phone number and the heading, "What Tracy Really Thinks About Matt." The conversations I'd recovered from her laptop filled the screens, complete with timestamps and her profile photo for authenticity. The room went silent except for the background music, which suddenly seemed inappropriately cheerful. Tracy's face turned the same color as her dress, but not from embarrassment, from rage. "Turn it off," she hissed, but I was already advancing to the next slide. Eric's messages appeared next, including his detailed descriptions of their encounters and his opinions about my inadequacies as a husband. Several people pulled out their phones to record the screens, because drama this good demanded documentation. "This isn't real," Tracy announced to the room, but her voice cracked on the last word. "Someone faked these messages." I advanced to the photos, not the intimate ones. I wasn't interested in public humiliation of that variety. Instead, I showed the timestamps proving she was at Eric's gym during her supposed work meetings, restaurant receipts from their dates, and hotel charges on our shared credit card. Eric tried to leave, but the elevator was slow, and everyone was staring. Danny started laughing, not because he thought it was funny, but because he didn't know how else to react to his sister's public destruction. "Matt," Tracy said, her voice now pleading, "we can talk about this at home." I clicked to the final slide. "Happy birthday, Tracy. Hope you enjoyed your surprise." Then I walked out, leaving my wife, her lover, and her friends to deal with the aftermath. The elevator doors closed on a room full of shocked faces and the sound of Tracy crying. I drove home, poured myself a drink, and waited for the real show to begin. Tracy didn't come home that night, or the next morning. I found out from Kelsey's social media posts that she'd stayed at Alana's apartment, probably planning her counterattack. The party had been all over social media within hours, with various versions of the story spreading through our social circle like a computer virus. I went to work Tuesday morning like nothing had happened. My coworkers had seen the posts, of course, but they pretended not to know. IT guys are used to being invisible, and personal drama makes people uncomfortable in professional settings. Around noon, my phone started buzzing with messages from numbers I didn't recognize. Tracy had shared my personal information with someone, and they were sending me photos of myself at work, at home, even at the grocery store. Someone was following me. The messages were simple: back off or things get worse. I traced the numbers to prepaid phones, untraceable but obviously coordinated. Eric had friends, probably from his gym, and Tracy was using them to intimidate me. They'd escalated from embarrassment to threats, which meant I needed to escalate my response. That evening, I drove to Bell's Fitness. Eric's red Mustang sat in its usual spot, taking up 2 spaces like a monument to his ego. The gym's security system was older than my marriage, and I'd helped install the upgrade 2 years ago when Eric hired my company for their computer network. I still had administrative access to their system, including the security cameras. Eric hadn't changed the passwords because, like most people, he assumed technical details were someone else's responsibility. I spent an hour reviewing footage from the past month. Eric's inappropriate conduct with female clients was well documented. He offered private sessions to attractive women, sessions that involved more touching than training. Several conversations showed him exchanging phone numbers and making plans that had nothing to do with fitness. I compiled the best clips into a highlight reel and posted them to the local community Facebook groups, the gym review sites, and sent copies to the women's husbands and boyfriends. I included Eric's business license information and a helpful timeline showing when each incident occurred. By morning, Bell's Fitness had 17 negative reviews and 3 canceled memberships. Eric's phone was probably buzzing with angry calls from husbands who'd seen their wives in compromising positions with their personal trainer. Tracy called me at work, screaming about harassment and lawyers. "You can't just destroy people's lives because you're upset," she said. "I'm not destroying anything," I replied calmly. "I'm just sharing information that people have a right to know." "This has to stop, Matt. Eric didn't do anything wrong." "Neither did I. But that didn't stop you from planning to take half my business in the divorce." The silence on the line told me she hadn't expected me to know about that conversation. "We need to talk," she said finally. "No, we don't. You made your choice. Now you get to live with the consequences." I hung up and went back to work. Mrs. Patterson's laptop had a malware infection that would take the rest of the afternoon to clean. At least some problems had simple solutions. Tracy's lawyer called Thursday morning. Richard Steinberg, Esquire, had a voice like gravel and an attitude that suggested he'd handled messier divorces than ours. He wanted to discuss recent harassment and potential legal action if I didn't cease and desist my campaign of intimidation. I listened politely and told him I'd have my lawyer contact his office. I didn't have a lawyer, but he didn't need to know that yet. The real problem came Friday afternoon. my boss, Jennifer Walsh, called me into her office with the expression she usually reserved for budget meetings and employee terminations. "Matt, we need to discuss some complaints we've received about your conduct." She slid a folder across her desk. Inside were printed emails from Tracy's company alleging that I'd used my IT access to steal personal information and harass employees. The complaints were detailed, professional, and completely fabricated. "These are serious accusations," Jennifer said. "Corporate harassment, violation of client privacy, misuse of technical access. If these are true, we'll have to terminate your employment immediately." I read through the documents carefully. Tracy had been thorough, creating fake email trails and forged timestamps that made it look like I'd been stalking her coworkers and accessing their personal files. She'd even included screenshots of social media posts that appeared to come from my accounts but contained threats I'd never written. "These are fake," I said simply. Jennifer's expression didn't change. "Can you prove that?" I could, actually. Tracy had made one crucial mistake. She'd used her company email to send the complaints, and I still had access to our shared cloud storage where her email was backed up. Her real messages to her lawyer and Eric were all there, including the plan to frame me for harassment. "Give me until Monday," I said. "I'll provide documentation that proves these allegations are false." Jennifer nodded reluctantly. "Matt, you're a good employee, but if I can't verify your innocence, I'll have no choice but to let you go." I spent the weekend building my defense. Tracy's real emails showed the conspiracy clearly. Her coordination with Eric, the fake evidence they'd created, and even payment records for the lawyer who'd called me. She documented her own crime in digital detail. Monday morning, I presented everything to Jennifer in a neat folder with timestamps, authentication records, and a complete timeline of Tracy's deception. I also included the original recordings from my bedroom, where Tracy and Eric had discussed framing me for various crimes to strengthen their divorce case. Jennifer reviewed everything twice, then picked up her phone. "Legal? I need you to look at something immediately." By Tuesday, Tracy's company had fired her for falsifying harassment claims and misusing company resources. Her lawyer had withdrawn from the case after learning his client had lied about the evidence. Eric's gym had lost 6 more members and received a visit from the health department following anonymous complaints about sanitation violations. Tracy called me Wednesday night, crying. "You've ruined everything, Matt. My job, my friends, my reputation. How could you be so cruel?" "I didn't ruin anything," I said. "I just stopped letting you ruin me." "We can fix this. We can go to counseling, start over, pretend none of this happened." "No, we can't. You made your choice when you decided I wasn't worth being honest with." "Please, Matt. I made a mistake, but we can work through this." I looked around our kitchen, remembering all the meals we'd shared, all the conversations we'd had, all the plans we'd made for a future that never existed outside my imagination. "Tracy, you didn't make a mistake. You made a series of deliberate choices over several months. You chose to lie, to cheat, to mock me with your friends, and to try destroying my career when I found out. Those weren't mistakes. That was who you decided to be." "I love you, Matt." "No, you don't. You love the idea of having someone who'll take care of you while you do whatever you want. That's not love. That's convenience." I hung up and started packing her belongings. She could pick them up when she was ready, but she wouldn't be living in my house anymore. The divorce papers arrived on a Thursday. Tracy was asking for half of everything, including my business, claiming she'd contributed to its success through emotional support and partnership. Her new lawyer was apparently more optimistic than the last one. I'd been expecting this, and I'd prepared accordingly. The business financial records were clear. I'd built everything myself, using my own savings and credit. Tracy had never contributed money, time, or effort to the company. Her emotional support consisted mainly of complaining about my work hours and suggesting I find a real job with better pay. I filed my response with documentation proving the business was separate property, along with evidence of Tracy's affair and her attempts to frame me for harassment. I also included a request for reimbursement of the money she'd spent on hotels and restaurants during her relationship with Eric. But the legal response was just the opening move. I had something more comprehensive planned. Saturday morning, I drove to the community center where Tracy volunteered for charity events. She'd always made a big show of her volunteer work, posting photos of herself helping at food drives and fundraising galas. It was part of her carefully constructed image as a caring, devoted wife and community member. The charity coordinators knew me as Tracy's supportive husband, the quiet guy who helped set up computers and manage their donor database. They trusted me with access to their systems, their files, and their gossip. I'd discovered something interesting in their financial records. Tracy had been skimming money from donation collections, small amounts that wouldn't be noticed individually but added up to significant theft over 2 years. She'd been careful, but not careful enough to hide the pattern from someone who understood database analysis. I compiled the evidence and sent it anonymously to the charity's board of directors, the local newspaper's community reporter, and the district attorney's office. Stealing from charity wasn't just morally reprehensible, it was a felony. By Monday, Tracy's volunteer access had been revoked and an investigation was underway. By Wednesday, the story was in the local paper with the headline, "Local Woman Accused of Charity Fraud." By Friday, Eric had posted on social media that he was taking a break from dating to focus on his business. Tracy called me Saturday night, sobbing. "They're going to press charges, Matt. I could go to jail." "You stole money from cancer patients and homeless families," I said. "What did you think would happen?" "I was going to pay it back. I just needed the money for things. For hotel rooms with Eric. It wasn't that much money. Nobody was really hurt. Tell that to the families who didn't get help because you decided their donations belonged to you." She cried harder. "Please, Matt. You could tell them it was a mistake, that I was confused about the procedures. They'd believe you. No. I'm your wife. You're supposed to protect me. You were my wife, and you're supposed to not steal from cancer patients." I hung up and blocked her number. Some conversations aren't worth having twice. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday morning in October. Tracy didn't contest anything after the charity fraud charges were filed. She signed the papers, kept her maiden name, and moved back in with her parents while awaiting trial. Eric closed his gym after losing too many clients and facing multiple complaints about his conduct. He moved to another state, probably to start over somewhere his reputation hadn't followed him yet. Kelsey deleted her social media accounts after her husband found out about her affair with her boss. Alana got promoted at work after distancing herself from the drama. Stephanie started a podcast about toxic friendships that became surprisingly popular. Danny apologized for the banana incident and invited me to his birthday party. I declined politely but appreciated the gesture. I kept the house, the business, and most of our shared assets. Tracy kept her legal problems and whatever remained of her relationship with her parents after they learned about the charity theft. My business actually grew after the divorce. Word spread that I was reliable, thorough, and capable of solving complex problems. Several companies hired me specifically because they'd heard about my attention to detail and comprehensive approach to technical challenges. I never told anyone exactly how I'd uncovered Tracy's various deceptions. People assumed I'd hired a private investigator or gotten lucky with evidence. They didn't need to know that the boring computer nerd had simply used his skills for personal instead of professional purposes. 6 months after the divorce, I was installing a new security system for a small law firm when one of the attorneys mentioned Tracy's case. She'd pleaded guilty to embezzlement and received 2 years probation plus community service and restitution. The prosecutor had been lenient because she was a first-time offender with no prior criminal record. "Shame about her husband," the attorney said. "Heard he was a decent guy who got blindsided by the whole thing." "Yeah," I said, connecting the final cable to their server. "I heard that too." I finished the installation, tested the system, and drove home to my quiet house. That evening, I cooked dinner for one, watched a movie Tracy would have hated, and went to bed early. For the first time in years, I slept peacefully. The next morning, I got up, made coffee, and went to work fixing other people's computers. It's what I'm good at, and it's honest work. Sometimes that's enough. Tracy had been right about one thing. I was predictable. I showed up, did my job, and treated people fairly. I just hadn't been as passive as she'd assumed. There's a difference between being quiet and being weak, between being patient and being stupid. She'd learned that difference the hard way, which was the only way she was ever going to learn it. I never saw her again after the courthouse, and I never looked for updates about her life. Some stories end when the problem gets solved, and I was satisfied with my solution. The computer repair business kept growing. I eventually hired 2 employees, and life moved forward the way life does when you stop letting other people define your worth. Sometimes former clients ask if I ever remarried. I tell them I'm still working on it, which is true in the sense that I'm still working on being the kind of person who deserves an honest relationship. That's a longer project than debugging a marriage, but the principles are similar. You identify the problems, clean up the corrupted files, and build better security systems. The difference is that this time, I'm the only user with administrative access.